I did this presentation with my partner, Sophie, and we chose the topic about the opioid epidemic going on in the United States. The documentary that we chose is called Heroin. Heroin is a 40-minute film highlighting the work of three women in Huntington, West Virginia. Huntington, West Virginia has been deemed as the overdose capital of America, with overdose rates 10 times that of the national average. These three women are working to change the town's narrative and break the devastating cycle of drug abuse one person at a time. These women are Jan Rader, Patricia Keller, and Nesia Freeman. Each of these powerful women play incredibly important roles in the response to the heroin epidemic in their communities. Fire Chief Jan Rader spends most of her days reviving those who have overdosed. Judge Patricia Keller presides over drug court, handing down empathy along with orders. And Nesia Freeman of Brown Bag Ministry feeds meals and provides support to the women who are selling their bodies for drugs. As America's opioid crisis actively tears communities apart, the Netflix original short documentary Heroin shows how the chain of compassion holds one town together. The purpose of drug court is to address substance abuse disorders within the criminal court systems. Drug courts are designed to help offenders who are addicts to become sober and to remain sober. It creates an environment in which each individual has the resources, honesty, and support necessary to keep each person sober and in an ultimate path towards recovery. It introduces structure, stability, and guidance into that person's life. The drug court system is a good concept. However, it does have its flaws, such as receiving jail time for relapsing. This would be where the social issue comes into play. Because addiction is a major health crisis which has taken so many lives throughout the US, relapse should not be punished with jail time. The offender should have the opportunity to fully recover and become physically stable before being thrown in jail for failing to abide by the drug court's rules. When a person is that dependent on a substance, relapse can become deadly. Therefore, rather than being tossed in jail, the addict should be in a recovery facility to properly recuperate. Now, I work in a hospital, so I see cases like this quite often. And as a healthcare worker, I see multiple patients who have a trying history with drug abuse and are often hospitalized for that reason. On my first day of training, one of my very first patients was a man who was addicted, and he was planning to take his life, and for that reason he was hospitalized. And when he was explaining his story with sobriety to a social worker, I'm required to be in the room with him. He was essentially explaining what he went through to start using, and after being 7 months sober with a new job and being able to live in a sober house, he began to use out of the blue and was kicked out of that house. He was crying whenever he was explaining the story, and we ended up talking about it. The person who was training me and him and I, and first we began speaking about his addiction and how it affected his life, and then continuing on from there, having regular conversation and laughing, and none of us felt the 12-hour shift go by. And before it was time for us to go, he told us that we were one of the kindest people who he had spoken to since he came into the ER, and he said that he wanted to get his life on track. I honestly don't know if he did, but I know that at least for a few hours we were able to help him forget the pain he had felt. It gives me hope that addicts can make certain changes within themselves with the proper professional help.